Welcome back to another episode of Tech Storytelling. And this tech story is for the business leader and by the business leader. And today I have an amazing guest, Mr. Nilesh Patil. Nilesh is the Chief Data Strategy Officer at emids. So Nilesh, namaste and welcome to this tech
Namaste.
storytelling.
Thank you very much, Madan. Thank you for having me here.
All right, great. It's our pleasure. So Nilesh, we before we get started, just to give our audiences, a flavor. I mean, who are you? Tell us something about you and your role at emids.
Sure. So, as you said, Nilesh Patil. So, heart, at a heart, actually, I'm a tech nerd, solutionist. Uh, that's how I describe myself. So, problem solver. Been in the industry for around 17, 18 years now. Did variety of roles. Since last 6+ years, close to 7 years, in fact, I'm involved with emids to set up the data engineering analytics practice. So my title is Chief Data Strategy Officer, but essentially it is about digital transformation, data engineering analytics for some of
Mhm,
our
mhm.
market customers. So I'm responsible for the entire function. Uh, as part of my role, mostly I interact with the executives on the customer side to understand
Yeah,
their pain areas, their transformation initiatives, aligning those transformation initiatives to more like IT and analytics initiatives.
yeah.
So marry both of them so that the business outcome is derived. So that's pretty much about me and what I do at emids.
All right, great. So great to hear about, let me ask you and your view. I mean, Chief Information Officer, Chief Digital Officer, Chief Digital Transformation Officer. I have heard about Chief Experience Officer, and now you are the Chief Data Officer. So can you please tell us why there is a need for a separate role and what are your focused area?
Absolutely, and that's a great question. And there is a lot more research that has already happened onto this. So traditionally, the CIO roles has always been the inward, right? Inward facing, really enabling the organization with IT infrastructure, softwares, hardwares, including everything, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and when it comes to the IT services organization, okay, CIO role wasn't really important, right? So the new thing that came up, which is consumer facing, so where really your digital experience needs to be driven, right? That is where the chief digital officer role came in, okay, which is more industry driven and customer focused, to really taking service offering solution, transforming the entire service offering spectrum, all those, right?
Mhm.
So those are the typical roles for the chief delivery officer. Sorry, chief digital officer, my bad. Chief data officer limits to the data architecture,
Mhm.
information management, analytics sometime. There has been a new role that also got created, chief analytics officer,
Oh, that's
which is
great to hear.
actually that's how the transformations are getting driven. So whatever digital transformations that you do with the help of data and insights that you generate, the analytics officer takes that and then augments or improves the business processes for betterment of the business, right? How to really manage the consumer experience, for example, right? Now, the new role that came into more like a SaaS companies, which is a chief experience officer,
Oh,
which is about how to really make product more usable, right? How to make product more successful for the consumers of those product. Typically, you will see that role falling into either big product companies or
mhm.
SaaS companies, right?
Yeah,
That is where the whole UI UX, which is nothing but a design-led engineering coming into picture, and
oh
that's why
yeah,
that role is very important.
oh
So
yeah,
though all these roles have a lot of overlapping responsibilities, but each of them have a different value in the value
oh
chain.
yeah.
Chief information officer really take care of all your internal IT ecosystem. Chief data officer really take care of all about your data and making data usable, the quality of the data,
Oh yeah,
for example,
yeah.
right? So establishing a stronger data foundation so
Mm.
that the analytical use cases can be developed. Chief digital officer, something who makes your offering solutions much better,
Mhm.
because this person can really bring in that value in terms of how customer will expect certain
Yeah.
solution to behave, and the experience is about nothing but the customer success, right? Really making product more usable and
Oh yeah.
betterment for the client experience. Yeah, so you will see more and more clarity coming in, but there will
Oh
be
yeah.
certain overlap. Yeah.
Yeah, so even in fact, I'm also getting ready for Chief Analytics Officer. I got excited when you talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so from your view, I mean, it's a lot of learning on this tech storytelling list from you. So data is the new oil, and I would say rather data is the new soil, right? So, in
Mhm.
your role of Chief Data Officer, would you like to tell us some of the practices that you help your customer to really monetize from the data,
Sure.
and how what kind of advice you have given to CXOs?
Absolutely. And see, especially industry-wise, the data maturity and the journey is at a different level. Okay,
Mhm.
we got to understand that. Where capital market is today, where
Yeah.
retail is today, where healthcare is today, is on a very, very different stages, right? Uh, so for each of those, there are different roadmaps and different strategies that are required, correct? Healthcare specifically, what has happened in last 30, 35, 35, 40 years, a lot of data and technical debt got created, right? A
Mhm.
lot of platforms came in, a lot of data formats that got created. So there is just variety of data formats, right? So one of the major thing that happens into the digital transformation pertaining to healthcare is really a data standardization, making unification of the data, because data is siloed, okay, as well as in a multi-format environment, so usability of data is very, very low. So somebody really needs to spend a lot of time on preparing data so that it can be used for the analytics. So my first advice has always been to CXOs is, okay, get your data standardized. Okay, unless it is standardized, you won't be able to have common understanding about your data assets. Once you establish a common understanding about your data assets, then it is easy for you to use that for analytics purpose, correct? Uh, Traditionally, most of the data programs, and I have been seeing this last 15, 16 years, that uh, most of the data warehouse or data platforms were driven by the technology choices,
Yeah.
right? We want to move from Informatica to data stage, or SSIS to data stage, or SSIS to Informatica. So mostly technology upgradation or transformation, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't really much about, uh, yeah, this is what I want to enable to the business. So my second advice always has been to the CXOs that you first look at what outcome you really want to drive. Why
Mhm.
do you need the data platform? Establishing data platform is a long haul. It takes anywhere between 12 to 18 months to establish a very solid data foundation. Though you can do that in a iteration, but you can call out complete when every data asset of your organization and ecosystem is converted into a unified data architecture. Second is really creating the common understanding about your measurement. Often seen that some of the measures we have our own definitions. So example, revenue realized. Is it a revenue invoice, revenue booked, revenue collected, or is it just the invoices that has already gone out of my mailbox? I should recognize the revenue, right? Uh, unless you define a standardized definition for some of these KPI measures and analytical use cases, it is very difficult for organizations to mobilize the resources in a right direction.
Yeah.
So first, data standardization, common understanding on a data as well as the KPIs. And third one, make your analytics more business process enabled
Oh
rather
yeah.
than showing dashboard. Create analytical indicators which will blend into your business processes, right? So that the decision making happens onto the indicators, not at looking at the dashboard, right?
Mhm.
Uh, you will see a lot of business users may not even look at the dashboard when they are taking the decision, right? Unless you integrate that into business process and tell the business user that, okay, this particular patient, this particular customer, this particular banker has this sort of propensities pertaining to your KPIs, right? And then tell them, okay, this is how your business process needs to happen. So this has been the major one. And then I always tell customers, right, and all my CXOs, CDOs, VPO technologies, I always tell them technology comes tertiary.
Oh yeah.
First comes the business outcome that you are driving. Second comes the business user alignment. And then third comes the technology. So really blending all this together, only digital transformation can happen.
Oh yeah, that's great. So great to hear that. I mean, still A lot of people might be excited about technology, but first comes the business outcome and where everybody should be mostly focusing on. This is great learning from you, Nilesh. So taking our conversation to the next level, since you talked about data platforms, so nowadays I can see a lot of conversation going on data lake, data warehousing, clubbing all the data together, having only the data lake. So what's your view? I mean, it should be separated, it should be together. What's your advice?
Yeah. So it goes case by case, by the way. Okay.
Mhm,
So see, data lake uh, is more lucrative option because
mhm.
it really gives you handle on to variety of data in an easy way,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because you are not transforming and really creating a solid data model when you are developing a data lake. Often happens that you just start dumping the data, right? And that's where the data lake creates a problem. First, you got to think about how my lake is going to look like, how I can really make it unified. So it's a unified data warehouse is mostly uh, dimensional model where you have facts and dimensions, where you really look at the facts in a multi-dimensional scenario, right? Example, by month, by location, by uh, 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 by division, what has been my sale, for example, right? So you try to slice and dice the information into
Mhm,
your data warehouses, whereas in data lake you try to create meaningful untold insights,
mhm.
something that will tell you story without really driving the story, right?
Oh yeah.
So classic example I always give, right? The machine learning and AI, a lot of people talk, right? So machine learning and AI is nothing but the augmented knowledge base that you create,
Yeah.
that if this happens then do this. It's nothing but a rule base, but it is slightly advanced in terms of the ability to profile your data, right? There are a lot more layers into that, but really if you want to run your data sciences, then the data lake is a better option. If you really want to run the business intelligence, which is more about the dashboards, visualizations, that sort of scenarios, then the data warehouse makes sense, right? And third is a subset of data warehouse, which has always been getting called, which are data marts. Those has been existing like before even I started my career. Those were prominent into the industry. They are still prominent. So data mart can sit either onto data lake or can sit onto the data warehouse as well, right? It depends on how do you really want to use it. Now, is there a silver bullet to say that, okay, use this data lake in this scenario and use data warehouse into that scenario? Not really, correct?
Mhm.
They can coexist or they can be stand alone as well, right? Because the user base as well as the usage of both
Oh yeah.
these infrastructures is very, very different. If I have to advise, if let's say you are looking at a data sciences organization to drive your analytics, okay, and rapid use cases, then go for the data lake.
Oh
If
yeah.
you know exactly what your business is looking for, okay, then go for the data warehouses because you will be creating more visualizations, KPIs, indicators, right, versus analytics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm really enjoying the conversation. In fact, it's a great learning for me. Nowadays, I'm following some of the Snowflake conversation and their webinars. And what I learned is data rise on the cloud.
Right.
So what's your view? I mean, of course, one thing is, of course, data rise on the cloud, and second aspect of the security, because the security is one of the most prevalent, that sits into the mindset. So, what's your view and what's your advice?
Yeah, so see, cloud is going to get more and more adopted. Okay, healthcare has been slightly slower into that, late in the game basically, whereas other industry has already adopted to a lot of cloud, right? Uh, 3 4 years back, certainly I would have also said that data security is a concern, but now with all the clouds, where most of the securities are driven by stronger components, as well as industry specific certifications that cloud goes through. Now, what has happened also on a cloud infrastructure, there are other companies who provide the security services,
Mhm.
right? Uh, like you can hire an external vendor, or you can have your IT team establish all required security controls as well. So it is just thinking that rather than having a dedicated room, okay, my hardware is residing somewhere else. So there is not a big difference. from the security standpoint. Okay, my personal experience has been cloud is a great enablement. Okay, uh, can really add to the scale and speed, right?
Okay.
Which has been a traditionally problem. And I can give example like 7 years back, 7 8 years back, when we
Mhm.
were working on one of the data warehouse program. We realized that our infrastructure is not sufficient for production and the performance digress. Okay, it took 180 days for us to really provision the hardware. From there it took another 30
Oh,
days to really get the hardware completely configured, right?
yeah.
And then when you augment the hardware which is on premises, it takes its own delivery or the infrastructure time, right? So really configuration, security, all those aspects, right? uh, if I look at right now, recently we had to get additional infrastructure, it came in one day,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So the speed of delivery just gets multifold. Okay, that is number one. Number two, uh, some of this cloud enabled platform which has been disrupting the industry, synops, snowflake, right? These are extremely powerful tools. Snowflake really brings, and I am so impressed with Snowflake, the way they have brought in that it just simplified version of all your data warehouses,
Yeah.
right? You can establish your data warehouses in a weeks rather than you will have to
Oh,
wait
yeah.
for the.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so adding to that, Snowflake or Synops, in that matter, both of them have been really, really good value addition. Many of our customers adopted to that journey. Uh, One thing that still needs to happen into the cloud environment, essentially, is really uh, multi-cloud scenarios, right? Because a lot of customers or a lot of industries has invested into some of the earlier cloud infrastructures,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When the hybrid uh, sort of architecture will get realized, a lot of people talk about it, but haven't seen really a successful case study yet. That multi-cloud, multi-vendor cloud scenario is extremely successful. The bi-directional, unidirectional issues are still there, right? Some of the technologies, for example, .NET Core on a AWS is still a problem, right? Uh, then all of a sudden, the Microsoft-based product companies are hesitant to adopt to the cloud, right? So some of those things will get better.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a great hope on a Snowflake
Oh,
to
yeah.
become a big part of the data ecosystem,
Oh, yeah.
and they're investing heavily onto making that platform better.
Okay, great. So great
Yeah,
to know your views, Nilesh. So you had to set up a data management and analytics practice and grew up to a sizable share in organizational revenue in less than 5 years. And what grabbed my attention that you developed more than 20 IPs for organization. So first of all, congratulations and wish you all the best.
thank you.
Tell us something about, about these IPs, or maybe you would love to hear some of the business use cases that will really help us to learn new insights from you.
Absolutely, and that's an interesting topic, and
Yeah,
we at emids are extremely excited, and uh, I myself call privileged to start the data engineering analytics practice and grow it to the size where it is. See, when you are when you are in a business of IT services, right? You either have to be first, or you have to be the biggest, or you have to be the niche,
yeah,
right? We chose a path of being niche, right? The solutions that we have implemented for our customers are extremely valuable. Uh, as part of this entire journey, what we realize that there are a lot of repeated activities that happens in our data programs, and there is a lot of effort spent which can be eliminated, right?
mhm,
So we started looking objectively to define and create some of these small IPs, small accelerators, which will enable the speed of delivery, so accelerating the entire program. So we got data models developed, industry specific, which cut down substantial time in your data architecture development, right? Then we developed our own ingestion engine, right? Which takes away the ETL development time, right? So which adds directly to the speed of your delivery, which
mhm,
also gives you to move in a new gen about metadata driven data intake and data
oh, yeah,
processing, right? Rather than writing code every time.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Then we develop a lot of other components like a governance component, data quality components. Likewise, we develop all these components
Yeah.
for our customers so that they can leverage it and expedite their analytics journey, right? We all, this 20, 25 IPs, we brought together and created a platform called Core Lake, which is a big data platform, uh, which we believe we can take our customers uh, to market in less, like at least 8 times faster, 6 to 8 times faster.
Oh wow.
So taking the entire coding out of the equation, every time you need to bring in a data, new data lake, data warehouse that you're developing, you don't really need to go and start developing anything. You just start configuring it.
Oh yeah.
And it's a metadata driven, right?
Mhm.
UI based, metadata driven. So that is how those IPs are. Now, the whole mindset has always been how we can really create a value for our customers, right?
Mhm.
Uh, if you are able to take customer 2x faster to market, okay, that's a value add for customers.
Mm,
But if
mm.
you take them like 5 times, 6 times faster, it's an exceptional value. That's how we try to create a value for our customers. Some of these IPs are also uh, to create the digital awareness within the organization, right? Because when you develop some of these IPs, the energy of organization gets boost, right? The investments are attracted better.
Yeah.
uh, been very fortunate that my executives and my board has always been supportive about those. So I would like any organization who really wants to create the value for customer, they should start thinking about the speed,
Oh yeah.
cost, and the quality, right? When you try to achieve the speed, certain times quality gets compromised. Okay, and when you look at the quality, the cost goes up.
Yeah.
By leveraging these accelerators, we can keep that balance in the right way, that we are still focused on to making sure that the cost is low,
Yeah.
speed is right, and the quality is exactly what you're looking for, right? So that combination really works
Yeah.
out with these ideas.
Yeah. Great. So great to know that. I mean, how you and your emids entire leadership team is take care of or care about the customer, about their speed and agility. So that is great. So now your views and suggestion to our audiences more about career transformation. This is all about business transformation. As professionally, you are doing fantastic. But my two questions. I know that we are running out of the time, but I take another 6 7 minutes of your time.
Sure.
So, Nilesh, you have conducted more than 100 plus consulting engagement into healthcare, capital market, and you have done a lot of fantastic job in digital transformation, product evangelization, modernization. So, how someone, I mean, I'm more advocating about the project managers who are more into strategy, but they're struggling to get into this space. So, how somebody who is zero today can become a hero into data analytics space? What's your advice? How to strategize?
Absolutely, and that's a question that I keep asking myself. Like uh, when I came into the consulting, right?
Mhm,
The one thing that I always had was the analytical thinking, right?
mhm,
Keep asking right questions, right? Keep probing customer in a right direction. Uh, so three skills which I feel in a consulting world is more important is the domain that you are operating in,
okay. Okay.
having an in-depth knowledge about the domain, right? More domain language you speak, customer hears you better, right?
Mhm,
And they
mhm,
respond to you in the right direction. Second, don't jump onto solutions. Okay, first understand the business problem. Many times, business problems are layered. There's multiple layers of the problems. When you hear one sentence, it is not that problem.
mhm,
There are underneath multiple problems which is causing the current state. So understand the ecosystem well, understand the problem statement well, try to get to the root, okay, where
mhm.
exactly this problem comes, right? So asking questions and probing questions really creates that sort of information flow, right? The third, which is most important, okay, process the information correctly, right? Don't try to map based on your understanding.
Mm.
Okay, put yourself on the other side of the table, think about it, right? And then
Mm.
give the solution.
Okay.
uh, I would suggest anybody who is trying to come into the consulting, okay, or coming into more like a solutioning, okay,
Mhm.
because consulting is also a solutioning,
Yeah.
right? uh, People have to understand that first you got to listen,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Then prepare for it, right? Then analyze it,
Mhm.
okay, then define, and then lay out your solution roadmap, right? People often jump onto solution based on limited information that they received,
Oh yeah.
right? Either you have to be informed, or either you have to be aware that the current problem statement has underneath these issues, okay.
Oh yeah.
So my advice is always like this, that identify the domain, learn the domain better, okay, uh, and practice asking the right questions.
Oh wow, you have simplified very simple way. So my view here, I mean, there are a lot of technology, I mean, to the industry, and it's evolving day by day. So how we should be charting out? I mean, if somebody I'm zero today, what should be my learning path for technology to enter into data and analytics space?
Yeah, so see, data analytics space is too much of technologies, right?
Yeah.
And I always tell that technology is the enabler. Okay,
Mhm.
technology is not a solution,
Oh yeah.
right? So first, like if anybody wants to come into the data analytics, first they got to understand the databases. They got to understand the SQLs. Okay, really writing some SQL statements so that you can process the data and get the
Okay.
analysis out, right? And third one, which is more about presenting the information in a right way. It is not what uh, story you are telling. The dashboards has to tell the story
Yeah.
of the business. So visualization, really visualizing the information in a way that people can process it and take the decision is a
Oh yeah.
critical
Great.
aspect.
Yeah, this is great. All right. So, Nilesh, this was really nice interacting with you. Thanks a lot for taking up time with us, and definitely this must have added a lot of value. At least I enjoyed. I learned a lot of insights from you. So, thanks a lot for taking up the time today.
Thank you, Madan. I appreciate you calling this out. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Hope this was
So,
helpful for others as well.
oh yeah, definitely. So guys, I mean our audiences, we were talking to Nilesh Patil. He's the Chief Data Strategy Officer at emids. He's there on LinkedIn. Please follow him, and then you learn a lot of insights from them. Thanks a lot for watching, and
Thank you.
stay tuned for other episodes.